In life, there's a lot of things we pretend to understand, but we really don't. Like, what the hell is an arranged marriage, and CrossFit, and taxes, and Bitcoin, and contemporary art. I'm like you, though. I like to understand how things work. I'm very logical. Everything needs to fit inside a box for me to understand it. I'm the type of person that goes to sleep safe at night knowing that 2 + 2 = 4. I'm also the type of person that when I go into McDonald's and order a cheeseburger, I'm gonna get a motherfucking cheeseburger, not a kale salad. I'm also the person that when I'm watching a murder mystery and the film ends, I like to know who the murderer is. But I'm also an artist, and I live in the wild, wild west of the art world, where there are no answers to anything. In the wild, wild west, 2 + 2 can equal 4, 44, or 893.54. There's no answers. So I'm going to take you on a very roundabout journey, my journey. I've tried to make sense of this whole, of this world that I live in. So I'm gonna tell you a little story. It's an art story. There was an artist in the 60s whose work kind of explored the relationship between art and human production. Anyway, his father didn't love his work, and he told him on a number of occasions, your work is shit. And he kind of took that to heart, and he was inspired to make an artwork that consisted of 90 tin cans filled with his own feces. He even went so far as to put little white labels on the front that read, "Artist's shit, 30 grams net, freshly produced and tinned 1961. But the thing that gets me about this, it's not the art production, that's one thing. The thing that gets me is that when he made the artwork in the 60s, he went and sold each tin for the equivalent price of gold. And only last year, one of those tins, remember there are 90, one of those tins sold for €275,000. You can't make this shit up. I'm going to give you a less shitty example, another less shitty story, sorry. An English artist, her name is Tracey Emin, and the artwork is titled My Bed, and it was kind of inspired by a low phase in her life. She spent many days in bed, she didn't eat, all she did was drink and smoke cigarettes. If you were to go and view My Bed at a museum or a gallery, you would walk into a room, you would see an unmade bed perfectly arranged in the middle of the room, kind of tousled amongst stained sheets and cigarette butts and beer bottles and slippers and underwear, and it's an unmade bed. And what was so fantastic about it, the critics came out in droves. They thought it was an absolute sham. You know, they said, anyone can exhibit an unmade bed. To which Tracey responded, but they didn't, did they? When she made the artwork in the late 90s, it sold for £150,000 and recently resold at auction for $2.5 million. I don't know if this part of the story is true, but I'll tell it anyway. Apparently Emin's ex-boyfriend is, her ex-boyfriend had an old bed of hers and was apparently willing to sell it to a keen buyer for $20,000 on the side. What a cheeky bugger. And there's one more story I really want to tell. It's a very short and sweet story by an artist called Felix Gonzalez Torres, and it's an untitled artwork. And the artwork is 200 pounds of carefully wrapped blue candy, very, very neatly arranged in a pile, sold at auction for $4.5 million US. a pile of candy. And there was a museum in New York who recently exhibited a similar pile of candy by Gonzalez, and there was a viewer who came, took a photo of the artwork, posted it to Instagram and said, "Quick, the Met's giving away free candy on the 4th floor." So I don't know, well, actually, of course you noticed this. I kind of inserted those price tags in and amongst the story, not for your benefit, for mine. Sometimes it is so much easier to talk about the money than it is to talk about the art. Good art, expensive. Shit art, also expensive. And it kind of puts into play this really wonderful saying by Andy Warhol. He said, "Art is whatever you can get away with." And these three artworks kind of have something really wonderful in common. They're kind of so blatantly simple. They're kind of so defiant and a little bit disobedient. They're a bit funny and very cheeky. But they kind of dare you to think that the whole thing's a bit of a sham. And it probably is. The fact that I'm even up here on stage talking to you about these artworks was probably their goal all along. But no matter how much you try and dress up shit in a can, at the end of the day, it's still shit in a can, an unmade bed, and a pile of candy. So I've tried to kind of unpack these artworks and kind of see what the artist has done. And what I can see is that they've kind of tested the boundaries, broken the rules, crossed the line, and got away with it. And I don't even hate them for it. It's brilliant. So I'm an artist. And the kind of work I make is very, very different from the art I've just explained. It's the opposite, like the complete opposite. You know when you might walk into a museum or a gallery and you'd see an artwork, let's say it's a colourful polka dot painting, and you kind of say, you whisper to your friend under your breath, "I could have done that." Well, I kind of make the work that gets a different reaction. You know when your mum tells you when you're younger that, you only have to be good at the one thing? Well, this is the one thing that I'm good at. I've peaked. It's downhill from here for me. My art is relatively traditional. It's conventional. The drawings I make look like a photo. And I kind of go stroke for stroke with a Xerox printer. And my art kind of sits in a very neat, in the confines of what you would consider art. When people explain my art, the general feedback I get is, "It's amazing. I can't believe it's not a photo. It's amazing." I hate the word amazing. Nonetheless, my art doesn't really hang out with controversy and heated debate. It's just amazing. So here I am with my amazing art, and here they are. Sorry, over there we've got the artists with the "it's not art" and I don't know what it is, but I kind of love it. I can't explain it. It's almost like an opposites attract kind of situation. You know when it's like when you mix fried chicken and chocolate ice cream together? It's like that. No? Oh, it's okay. It's like I'm looking at something I probably shouldn't be looking at, but I'm looking anyway. You know when there's like a car crash and you kind of drive really slowly past and you know you're not meant to, but you do, and you're doing it to kind of assess the damage. You're not meant to go slowly, you're meant to just keep on driving. That's what it feels like for me in this art. Another example is like being back at high school. My art's like that annoying good kid who on the surface always does the right thing. So my art's like the guy who kind of waited until turning the right age before going to buy beer at a bottle shop. And these guys are over here, the underage kids, got a fake idea and got shit tons of beer and got away with it. And I think I'm a bit jealous. Like I don't know if I want to be part of that gang, and I'm kind of look at them with awe. But these artists are kind of what I find so extraordinary about them is I think, maybe it's not the art, I think it's the artist themselves. They're so inspiring because of the balls, the size of their balls. It's unbelievable. So these artists kind of are quite extraordinary because they kind of draw a line in the sand and they say, this is art. And then another artist pops up and they say, no, this is art. And they're constantly pushing the boundary of what we think art is, the line called art. And that's what I find probably the most extraordinary thing about them. And at the end of the day, I think the thing for me, in a very roundabout way, these artists inspire me to believe that I too can get close to the line. What line is that? It's the invisible art line. And they also inspire me to believe that with a big enough set of balls, I too can have the confidence to get away with it. And what is it? It, for me, is creating something more than amazing. So, I'm not going to lie, I didn't get it, and I probably still don't. But I found inspiration in an unusual place. I found inspiration in art I had once disregarded. So I challenge you, next time you go to a gallery or museum and you kind of walk through the door and you try to understand why, you try to read the wall plaque and still scratch your head, you kind of walk out more confused, I challenge you to walk in expecting to be inspired. Be inspired by the confidence. Be inspired by the cheekiness. And at the end of the day, if you still don't get it, never forget that some dude sold shit in a can for cash money. Thank you.